around the Yu-Gi-Oh internet the last couple weeks, you've probably heard the conversation that Yu-Gi-Oh is dying. Lorcaina's got that Disney money, they're taking over all these names in the events, they're Yu-Gi-Oh players, and look at them, they're buying Lorcaina, they're buying Lorcaina. I think the realistic but more boring conversation title is that Yu-Gi-Oh's in danger long-term of falling out of the top 3 card games. Yu-Gi-Oh is thriving right now, however, in multiple different facets that people don't bring up in these arguments, so I'm gonna talk about the good and then the bad. But we've heard Yu-Gi-Oh is dying since Synchros, those white cards taking over the extra deck, that's crazy. Stardust Dragon's way too powerful too. Xyz laying cards on top of each other, what have they come to? Pendulums, which is probably where a lot of people did actually walk away a little, and then Link summoning, and Firewall Dragon being the only format that probably could have killed the game for a bit. And finally, we're in modern times where it's back to the age-old dooming. I'm gonna start with the good. Master Duel had a huge influx of players into this game, and I think it's heavily understated. It's its own thing, running around, doing very successful, having a ton of money poured into it to the point where we could end up one day with the TCG just trying to feed Master Duel to some degree. I prefer paper Yu-Gi-Oh! I like holding my physical cards, but an automated system brought a bit more of simplicity of options to a convoluted game that is extremely complicated, and I feel like it does a little bit of a better job of teaching people, but not enough. That's why I want to actually talk about a second point here real quick, is that Konami has one easy trick where they make these decks that ignore all other mechanics of the game from the extra deck, and they push them out here and there, and they are meta relevant. Let's talk about it. Domain Monarchs and Cosmos were kind of the same era, and both could choose to ignore the extra deck in large or play them very lightly, and they were very successful, but that's a long time ago. Then we got to True Draco. True Draco is a deck that was from TOS format and into it almost a bit. It mixed with Sky Striker, but debuted earlier than that. And again, ignored the extra deck for tribute summoning more so instead. And then in Modern, we got Fluanderies, which is on the tail end out, pun intended, of the metagame, but it was there for a good while. So now people are looking for that deck again to teach a new player. It was Flunder for a bit, and Konami tends to, around the corner of these times, make another deck that ignores all other extra mechanics of the game so that people can learn it by playing against it instead of with it. And I think they'll probably continue to end up doing that over time. The question is more when, and we're at the end of not having another one. Well, I should say beginning of not having another one of those again. We also have record merch deals going on. They're passing it around like it's 2004. Some shady companies are even getting merch deals, which is kind of funny, but we're talking statues with first for figures and a record number of, from Japan, different companies making Yu-Gi-Oh statues and model kits as well, and they are selling very nicely for themselves. And also the Japanese arcades are now carrying a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh stuff, and it is very popular. Then we also have shirts, skateboards, all the way down to underwear. There's underwear deals for Yu-Gi-Oh here in 2022 to 2024, and yeah, I bought some of those for sure. Then we have record event attendance. In the OCG, we had a Guinness World Record attendance for any TCG tournament at their YCS, and the OCG is what feeds into the TCG, even though the TCG is the cash cow, and that's where a lot of us reside. So do know that even though it's not necessarily a dipstick of health into the game to talk about event attendance, when we are breaking records, it is noteworthy and a sign that things are doing all right for a game. Now, it is local attendance that is the bread butter of the game, and that's where we get into the bad a bit. We're seeing a lot of shops close up and not carry TCG Yu-Gi-Oh for multiple reasons. We'll get into that. The first of the bad is there's no younger gateway into the game. Dragon Duels are a bit of a joke. Their attendance isn't working out. We don't have an anime to get people in, and you can nudge them towards Master Duel, but the number one way people that are younger getting into the game is their dad used to play and they try to get them into it, and maybe it takes off, maybe it doesn't with them. But that's it. We have streaming deals with Pluto TV and free streaming, and that's actually expanding a lot and apparently doing very well. But I still don't feel like that's going to be a major gateway. This, 20-year-old anime that has a lot of outdated references, that doesn't make moments with these cards. And Nickelodeon kicked off Arc V from the platform. It wasn't getting enough views, so they ended it. And a lot of people don't end up bringing that one in the conversation either. Stores cutting product is probably as bad as it gets. Strike Zone, a long-lived mainstay of the community that was vending YCSs, no longer buys Yu-Gi-Oh! As of last year. The product got so awful in repetition that you can't ignore the failures of them. Megatins, the ex-flagship product of the game, have failed 3 years in a row, and they're looking to replace it. Oh, Rarity Collection, that took off. Let's do it with that. Oh, Rarity Collection 2 failed. What about Ghosts from the Past? That was kind of a smash hit during the Crush card boom. Oh, yeah, the second one of that failed as well. We kind of messed that up. The quality control was awful on the chases. There's so many things plaguing Yu-Gi-Oh! Product, but the number one is greed of short prints. The ratios are worse than ever, making product worse to bust, and they did these luxury rarities within the core sets of Starlight Rares and Quarter Century Secret Rares, except they keep reprinting the same cards in different high rarities, making almost instantaneous competition to where a ton of vendors are shaky because Rarity Collection reprinted tons of Starlights and Collector Rares, and that was a mass exodus of whales into the game. And when whales are leaving, what happens to the busted product? Oh, there's less of it and there's less cards to go around. So some of the meta cards get more expensive and there's less sealed and all this. It is a chain reaction that is actually happening. There is less ordered product. There is, in my analytics, it's not just that my channel is going down and less people are using my code. It's from stores, less products being open, and it's more converging around some of the big players that are continuing to order in mass. But a lot of different stores have exited. A lot of floor vendors that used to order 20 cases have exited, and there's less product to go all around overall because the ratios are so greedy and it's so bad. Like, when we talk ratios, they up the amount of super rares even in a box, ultra secrets. You can't mathematically pull a playset of every single secret in a box now. Before there were short prints preventing that for a couple of the cards. Now it's all the cards kind of fall to short ratios. And yeah, product suffers for it. And that's where we're at. Konami can't get a good balance of creating chase cards as well as giving us enough within the product to make it worth opening consistently. And there's more products than ever, so more failures than ever. And stores ended up tired of that. And my locals in my city right now closed. Like, that was a couple of years ago, 2 years ago. And so many in 2022 and 2023 did just shut the doors to Yu-Gi-Oh! And that's why event attendance isn't the only dipstick into the health of the game. It's places to play it. Also, side note, European events just got announced. Yay. But the reason a lot of event attendance was up over there wasn't just the popularity of the game. It was the only time to play it big. And now we're getting some variety and choices there, finally. And then it's also the whales leaving in mass. We talked about the floor vendors, but also the collectors. A lot of collectors bought into modern Starlights and Collector Rares. And those doubled down the reprints of luxury rarities, which are meant to like give a backbone to product long term. They're not there anymore for people. Now the new one is Dragon Master Magia. People bought in immediately. It's already coming back down in price. Where it lands, your guess is good as mine. But really, like, it's so hard for people to have faith in any modern product at this point, and a lot of them just fall off because of that when they should be home runs. The collector rare model in specific might be what's really hurting side sets. When we had all foil side sets, they were all, even mediocre ones, hitting huge prices and selling out over time. But the collector rare sets do nothing but go down and sink out, and then their cards get reprinted in the megatons that are also failing, and they're just available there. Like, the side sets are struggling so bad, and any success, even with the greatest of sets, have been minor there. I don't see a solution besides getting rid of the collector rare sets and going back to all foil, honestly, on that in specific. So let's talk about One Piece and Lorcana. We've had this dance and show with other card games before. Flesh and Blood's doing great, huge prizes. You go all the way back, World of Warcraft, the card game, had insane prizes, and people were talking about that. But Lorcana is Disney money, a company that has 200 times the money of Konami. Like, Disney is really up there, and it is doing well to start. It is poised as a threat to Yu-Gi-Oh! And if Yu-Gi-Oh! Does not adapt, it falls out of the top 3. Now, a lot of the players highlighted by the community are players that already cycle out of Yu-Gi-Oh! And come back in as is. If they stay over there now instead of coming back in, is it a loss? Absolutely. But they are ones that take breaks, like Dominic Couch, Silverman, and then come back to the game in force at times. Billy Brake even took breaks from the game, the name, but after one, he won his 3rd YCS, and then another, a 4th, and now he works at Konami. When we look at the actual history of the game, most of the pros do take a bit of a backseat and then come back in full force. In the age of content creation, if a pro chooses that, they don't get that luxury because they have to be constantly talking about Yu-Gi-Oh! To add to their living or travel expenses, etc. But for the most part, a lot of them do take a bit of a snooze button, 3 months here, or what's happening over in this card game when there's a format they're not necessarily enjoying or really feeling, and they come back refreshed and they dive in when there's a new archetype that really grabs them. My answers to all of this, in terms of what can we do about it, it's all in Konami's hands, unfortunately. One, pricing's so easy to update. It doesn't have to be cash. So many people are saying, oh, you gotta get cash with this. You've gotta, take it back to them and do big cash pricing. We've seen them have stuff on the prize wall worth a card. Those huge Starlight sheets, which have now been cut down to little 4x4 ones because it was dwarfing the main event. Hey, just give the Starlight sheet to first place, or let the top 3 get a giant foil card, a medium foil card, and 3rd place get a non-foil medium card of their choice, created out of any card. The Edison side event cards are going for like 5,000. It is better to win some of these side events than the main event, which is still ridiculous. The main event is got a vanilla prize card, good old Nintendo Switches. You do get travel to the NAWCQ, I believe, still, but it's just so much more worth to actually win an Edison tournament or an Attack of the Giant card at times than these main events. So update the pricing to the main event with stuff that you already have. Go ahead and do it. Like, who cares if you see a Yu-Gi-Oh! Price sell for $20,000, give it to them. Like, why just take it away from everybody? Then we also have the product ratios are terrible. That's an easy fix. Go back to the science of upping those a bit and then finding your greed point of, okay, we do this luxury rarity, we don't reprint this right around the corner in an OTS, and we figure this and that out. Like, figure out your gosh dang ratios and stop being so greedy with them. And then finally, the new Master Duel ladder is actually going to debut. Use that as a tool for Worlds as well, and maybe figure out a limit to your terrible tournament structure there, because that will long term probably hurt the Master Duel grinders. I do think Master Duel is now really something that is needed for the health of the game instead of separate from the game, and it will keep people into Yu-Gi-Oh! During alternate formats they're not into or revisiting. There's so many times people blame a format. Oh, if the format's fun, people will play. But look at Tier Element. Everyone was crying during it, and now they're like, oh, actually, we made a mistake. Tier Element was great. I want the mirrors back. Oh my gosh. So many YouTubers are saying this. So many people on Reddit and comment sections, etc. are saying it. Like, they all cried when Tier Element was here. You know what? They also did that during TOS, the Eternal format. Oh, I miss TOS so much. Oh, I want to go play some TOS. Oh, yay, we got TOS Time Wizard events. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is hearing out its alternate formats. They're having trouble capitalizing on it overall, like that substituted recently printed's not making them a ton of money. But there's definite problems that are going to lead to long-term people leaving Yu-Gi-Oh! And there is more competition than ever before. So while Yu-Gi-Oh! Is not dying, or in any danger of dying soon, it is in danger of falling off and not having an excellent gateway now to debut to get new people in the game. And that's where we're at. So people see the problem set up. Konami has time to react, but with record event attendance, that's not going to be their dipstick. Their dipstick is going to be sales. And a lot of product is speaking to them right now, and I hope they end up fixing that immediately instead of re-waving Retro Pack and driving even more whales out of the game. Thanks for watching, everybody.